What we have done in looking through the entire program of the federal student loan program, and we had found, and there was a large concentration of it in Minnesota, those universities where students were applying for federal loan, they were not required to show any kind of identification to prove who they were.
That was Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, who joined National Report after calling for the resignation of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, even as more allegations of fraud hit his state.
That's right. Walz is under mounting scrutiny, as the investigations pile up. This education fraud scandal follows a massive fraud scandal committed largely by the Somali population that rocked the state.
That's right. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is now ordering the state to recertify all of its SNAP recipients within the next 30 days, and that is not all. According to a new report, new indictments just dropped. So, 2 Philadelphia-based men are accused of traveling to Minneapolis after a friend told them the taxpayer-funded programs there presented a good opportunity to make some money.
To discuss, let's bring...
What you're about to hear is exactly why so many Americans are fed up and why the political establishment hates when the truth gets exposed. I just watched this video, and honestly, it confirms what patriots have been saying for years. The system is broken, and taxpayers are being robbed in broad daylight. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't misinformation. These are indictments, court records, and facts, and yet the media barely whispers about it. So let's talk about it.
Bring in Principal Deputy Spokesperson at the State Department, Thomas Pigott. Great to have you with us here. All right, Thomas, let's just go right to that announcement about those new indictments that Bob just referenced, this time involving 2 Philadelphia-based men. They were accused of traveling to Minneapolis after a friend actually told them there are some taxpayer-funded programs that presented a good opportunity to make money. Obviously, the word was out.
Well, ultimately, I referred to law enforcement authorities for specifics, but what I can say from the State Department's perspective is that we have instituted policies when it comes to our visa policies that make sure that when someone comes to this country, the taxpayer will not be on the hook for that person, a public charge rule, to make sure that we're looking at a whole host of different factors to make sure that someone comes here does not end up just relying on benefits, as actually someone that is going to assimilate and contribute, in addition to a whole other range of factors. So this reinforces, in my mind, part of why we need to see that era of mass migration come to an end. And President Trump has taken concrete steps to bring it to an end by having an America First visa policy.
Thomas, I feel like people had to know. I feel like lawmakers in Minnesota and in Minneapolis and all the other towns, if you got guys, the word is out in Philadelphia to come on up to their state to go rip off the state government, people had to have known here, don't you think?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on what people may or may not have known, but obviously this is unacceptable. The president's spoken directly to this, and ultimately, this is why we need to see policies in place that make it clear that when someone comes to this country, the American taxpayer is not going to be on the hook. It's actually an authority we've had at the State Department for close to 100 years, and we're seeing implementation of that policy for new people applying on visas coming to this country. But I can also say if someone is here on a visa and they violate the terms of that visa, if they break the law here, that's grounds for revocation, and that's an important part of this as well. We're not going to tolerate people that abuse our immigration laws, that break the law. We're going to take action to address that.
All right, and Thomas, you did mention that the president did reference this last night. I believe we have some sound on exactly what he said regarding Minnesota, if we could bring that up.
Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it.
Your reaction, Thomas?
Well, that was part of that speech talking about all of the promises that the president has made. And it really was an historic speech because he made the promises and he's following through on them. It's promises made, promises kept. And the fundamental tenet of that speech, I believe, was America first. America first. Common sense policies to say we're not going to have people in this country that break our laws, that abuse our systems, that attack our country, that undermine our national security. We're having a whole of government approach to put the American people first. That's exactly what President Trump promised to. That's exactly what he's done. And that speech last night outlined so clearly how he is living through on all of those promises.
Yep, certainly is. Thomas Pigott, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
The video exposes massive fraud inside the federal student loan system. And Minnesota is named as a hotspot. Millions upon millions of dollars handed out with little to no identity verification. Let that sink in. Regular Americans have to show ID to open a bank account, buy a phone, or board a plane. But when it comes to government money, suddenly the rules disappear. And who pays the price? You do. The taxpayer. The working American. The family struggling to afford groceries and gas. This isn't just incompetence. At this scale, it's negligence, or worse. What really stands out in this video is how warnings were ignored. Officials raised red flags. Investigators sounded alarms. And instead of stopping the bleeding, the system kept printing checks. That tells me one thing. Accountability is optional in Washington, unless you're a regular citizen. If you mess up on your taxes, the IRS comes knocking. If you commit fraud for $5,000, you're prosecuted. But if bureaucrats allow millions to vanish, silence. That double standard should outrage every American. And this is why the so-called student loan forgiveness agenda is a slap in the face to responsible Americans. They tell us it's about compassion. But how can we forgive loans when we don't even know who legitimately received them? Why should a plumber in Ohio or a small business owner in Texas be forced to pay for loans that were fraudulently taken out, possibly by people who never qualified in the first place? That's not compassion. That's theft legalized by bad policy. The video also connects this fraud to a broader issue: weak enforcement of the law. When borders aren't enforced, when identity checks are treated as optional, when law enforcement is demonized, fraud thrives. Chaos benefits criminals, not citizens. And pretending otherwise is either naive or dishonest. A nation without borders, without verification, and without enforcement is not compassionate. It's vulnerable. This is why so many Americans supported President Trump, and still do, not because he was perfect, not because he was polite, but because he understood that government exists to serve citizens, not exploit them. America first doesn't mean America only. It means American taxpayers come first. American laws come first. American security comes first. And when systems are abused, they need to be shut down, audited, and fixed, not defended for political convenience. Ask yourself this. If this fraud benefited conservatives, would the media ignore it? Of course not. But because it exposes government failure under policies they support, it gets buried. Patriots are expected to just keep paying, keep quiet, and keep trusting the same people who failed us. That era is over. This video isn't just about student loans. It's about who this country works for. Is it the American taxpayer or an unaccountable bureaucracy? Patriots want fairness. Patriots want the rule of law. Patriots want transparency. And we are done being told that asking basic questions makes us extremists. If demanding accountability makes me a patriot, I'll wear that label proudly. If you believe America should reward honesty, protect taxpayers, and enforce its laws, share this video. Because the truth only spreads when we refuse to stay silent.